Hello everybody, and in this piece here I'm going to be talking about the Vatican and the Roman Empire that's been shaking things up in the world. The Vatican and the Jesuits order is not of white and good heart, as Catholicism makes their wardrobes look so innocent, but it is without a shadow of a doubt one of the most corrupt cult societies of hypocrites, liars, rapists, and deceivers of the truth. Behind this veil that outwardly says to people, "We love you," are the real people whose hands drip with the blood of martyrdom, torture, rape, sex trafficking children for their rituals, and many other ritual abuse. Satanic ritual abuse we will get into. These people worship Satan and do not worship God. The more power they get within government, the more that evil veil can be covered up, and the more that these crooks can get away with. Their reason is to enforce laws that harass, malign, destroy, and censor everyone and every idea that is not Roman Catholic, so they can design, manipulate, and control certain aspects of our lives regardless on what we do or not do. Catholicism sits upon many lies and corruption and mass manipulation of people with common interests to have common laws and all that. All these men created are supposed to be created equal in the eyes of God. Catholicism, in my eyes and opinion, is not a true Christian at all. It is, in my opinion, very satanic, and the people will soon be shaken up to the realities that these people are creating for you and me. And its design is to control the world government. The Church and the Satanic Vatican has infested the whole world and the United States government. Now they control the United Nations, in which they created, and the White House, Congress, and every state, federal, civil, and social government agency, including the United States Department of Labor, the IRS, the FBI, the Supreme Court, the judicial systems, our armed forces, state, federal, and other police. Also, they have controlled over international banking and Federal Reserve systems, called the Illuminati, labor unions, the mafia, and most of your mainstream news media owned. The Vatican is very close to replacing the United States Constitution with their one world canine laws of death to the heretic or anyone that is not Roman Catholic. If the liberties of the American people are ever destroyed, they will fall by the hand of the Roman Catholic cult's clergy. Lafayette. Today, we find in great detail plans that are given in excerpts of a speech given nearly 50 years ago in Australia by Roman Catholic Archbishop Gilroy. The Roman Catholic motto is "Ourselves alone for fellow Roman Catholics." We must defeat all heretics, non-Roman Catholics, at the ballot box. The Holy Father states that negative tactics are fatal. The demands of the Holy Father or Pope are that the public services should be 100% Roman Catholic soon. Take fact in the matter that more of these Roman Catholics in Vatican are able to get government jobs than the heretics, the Jews, the Christians, and any other religion appointing to truth. It's no wonder most people are blind to faith, because they were never able to see it growing up. Multi-millions of people have been killed off by the Vatican, and history bears records during the Roman Catholic Inquisition in Europe. 68 million people were tortured, maimed, and murdered for their faith by these killers. The St. Bartholomew's Massacre accounted for as many as 100,000 Protestants. Abraham Lincoln stated in defiance of what was going on and spoke up for the people, only to be murdered himself. He stated, "This war would have never been made possible without the sinister and secretive influence of the Jesuits, and that we owe it to the Popery that now we have to see our land reddened with the blood of her noblest sons." He also stated, "I am for liberty of conscience in its noblest and broadest and highest sense, but I cannot give liberty of conscience to the Pope and to his followers, the Papists, so long as they tell me, through their councils, theologians, and canon laws, that their conscience orders them to burn my wife and strangle my children and cut my throat when they find their opportunity." And because of his exposing of the Vatican and much use of his time and energy into stopping the corporate cabal and manipulation, he was put to death, to be silenced by the elite leaders in their white masks and their inner demons that go right along with their territory. So yes, he was assassinated by the Jesuits under rule of the Roman Empire, and the Vatican has not changed since that time. And in fact, they've only tightened up their structure. It has nothing to do with your dreams or the American dream or its people. It has everything to do with war and controlling the people of this world to a point where death and destruction is just another job for these people, and they commit murder for their own welfare. Even if this is justified by law, it is not legal no matter what the paper it is that it is written on, and no matter who wrote on it. And we are the makers of our own realities, and we do not have to listen to the authority any longer when all it's doing is killing our dreams, our potential gains, our family structures and our communities, the tightness we otherwise would be, and creating wars among the people, causing race and other discrimination wars. Though I believe people should stick to their own kind for the most part, I do not believe that we should ever have to hold fear for one another, or for the way we believe, or to discriminate against anyone based on the character or the content of their skin. Take the assassination of John F. Kennedy and look at the study in comparison. Just like 9/11 was set out to harm the people of America while shutting down our World Trade Centers and wipe out a lot of other people that had a story within themselves as well to tell and didn't get the chance to speak it. Just like all the wars and all the people that have been murdered, for all of these people to call themselves good men and stand in front of the camera and feed us on a bunch of lies is something so wicked that I don't think any one of us can really piece any of it all together. But just to know that they're hiding information from the people that would otherwise cause the people to rise up and cause us to go into a civil war. And that is exactly what they want for you and what they want everyone to do. Because they just want to watch people die, and they get to keep all of the money and the currency that was created out of you and out of your birthright since you were born, and getting horribly fucked in the worst ways by your own government. These idiots are the biggest criminals because they swear upon an oath that they don't take their oaths seriously. They give this slack to the American people. All they serve you is more and more debt. I don't care about the color of law. I don't care whatever speed you are going to get to work or to get home because you are tired and or hungry. I don't care about these things because if you aren't hurting anyone and you are just reasonably trying to make a wage and make a living in America, you're just doing what's reasonably right, trying to make a life out of all of the bullshit that the government has been created for us to even get to. And let me tell you, if you're a Christian, they ain't creating much for you, dog. Then your government is the criminal. Those judges and the police officers are the real criminals, because our natural rights were designed to be protected by the government. But what we are facing is a complete sideswipe of that, and get a bold-faced lie daily, and a lie when we're out in that life experiencing different things and experiencing them in such a way that tells us we are being snuffed out. We are being subjugated to this abuse. And it's paid for by our own tax dollars. In fact, we're not just being lied to anymore, because the truth is out there, and the truth will set you free. Maybe not free from the oppression that's going on today, but freedom of mind and not understanding debt or why you might feel so broke. It's because the whole world is broke. Stuck on the upside down and inside out. When President JFK was assassinated, he was asked by the Romans if he was going to go along with the Romans' plan or the United States Constitution, and his answer was the right one. The United States Constitution. But if he would have just lied to get inside a little bit more and still go along as planned, in good conscience, I think he could have done it right. But this is what ultimately caused for his assassination, is going up against the Roman Empire. John F. Kennedy was assassinated by the orders of the Roman Empire criminal cabal, just as President Lincoln was. Anyone else that knew too much about his assassination was also taken care of too, and this circle doesn't stop to this day. So, for the people out here, I just want to say something. I want to say that I'm stepping up in that way because I think that my life has been blindly sideswiped since I was born, basically. So, I have reason to come into this so boldly because people are unaware and being misled by government into wars that we were never supposed to be in. And then we're indoctrinated into thinking that these wars were made by, false flag events conned up into war for made up reasons. And they are so involved in the deception on both ends, both sides, that if you ask me, they created 9/11, they took America's World Trade Center down for some operation. They set up disaster after disaster to create a puppet for their reasons and go to war. This is in theory what makes sense, and their whole game plan is of deception. And then they are just coming out now and saying, in other words, that they have enough power now to control every little snot-wide person in the world, and they care not what people believe in or not believe in. You are going to be dead one way or another, and they don't care how. In other words, they even state that they don't even care when, that they're willing to wait for it and wait for the right moment to bring total control of the people and total control of the whole world. But in a world where you have to think, to be so scared of what you believe in or not believe in is a scary place to live in the first place. God gives man free will, and he won't ever change it because he loves you. If these Vatican priests and the Popery really had any love or held any love in their hearts for you, 1, he wouldn't go around kissing your kids on the forehead, and 2, he would be guided by the Holy Spirit and not of evil deities, of that of a demon or some satanic ritual abuse. These things make me mad, and that is just why I'm getting excited about it, because I've been put through hell getting to the things that I'm getting to, and even just being able to write in general. So if you want to be all happy about getting chipped and getting implanted and getting further indoctrinated into the world's shit camp, go ahead. But you're not doing me or yourselves or anybody in the world any justice or any favors. They look to me as if there's the same people who don't care whether or not there is any truth to God or the true love of many men who are revered to truly and dearly endure it with others. World War II had over 30 million deaths, 6 million Jews. The Holocaust was conjured up and sponsored by the Vatican. Hitler, Hausslein, and Franco were also members of this sect of the Roman Vatican Catholic cult. They were all put in place to win the war, not for Christ, but for the Vatican and for Satanism and Antichrist. From the turmoil in Southern and Central America to the tyranny in the Jesuits, Castro, Cuba, to the terrorism in Lebanon and Ireland, to the wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria, and the list goes on and on. So now you can understand the words in Revelation 17, which says, "And there came one of the 7 angels, which had seven veils, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. She is even called a whore that sits upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a gold cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Jim Jones, a Roman Catholic Jesuit beacon posing as a Christian, was sacrificed, murdered along with his followers of the Vatican, to not only make the world suspicious, but to make confusion upon the innocent Christian retreats. Proverbs 6:16 through 19 reads, These 6 things doth the Lord hate, yea, 7 are the abomination unto him, a proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief. And I'm going to interject here, it just sounds to me like insinuations. Reading on, a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among brethren. All these things that God hates, the Vatican does. Do you ever wonder why our U.S. customs and immigration laws and regulations have rapidly gone from bad to worse to unbearably ridiculous? You can't get out of the United States without going through the 3rd degree. Searches, radar, scanners, etc. In the 1960s, when the Jesuit Vatican trained Timothy Leary, they led our country's youth into drug addiction. Immigration and customs seemed almost as unable to do them as they do now. To detect tens of thousands of pounds of narcotics and drugs entering into our once fair nation through the use of the mafia, which launders all of its illicit and ill-gotten gains and all of its black market money through the Vatican. Maybe this is why President Lincoln said, I see a very dark cloud on America's horizon, and that dark cloud is coming from Rome. In this world, I see conflict with people that are supposed to be protected by government, and the people that are doing the damage are doing it in the guise of law and getting paid to do their job. But money in this illegal monetary system has made it impossible for people to get ahead and make a true living. The rules in place make it harder and harder for those who have a dream to go after that dream when it's largely miscalculated in favor of the governments and the bankers. And it is shutting down the dreams, and ultimately what could be happening today has been shut down by this global plan for a world order that they want. So we aren't living an organic life anymore, folks, because the dreamers of old, if they were to actually be able to live out their dreams, you and I would think differently. You and I would see things differently, and you and I would be educated differently from jump. And this rule of law is a fiction of what actual justice looks like. Actual justice doesn't exist simply when it is set up in favor of these criminals behind the veil of some government that cares about the people, when in reality, the government is now set up to hurt every single last person here on Earth. Why? Because they have a plan to wipe us all off the face of the planet and don't care about how long it takes to fulfill their agenda. They just want total domination, total control over the people, and the people are letting it happen. because no one wants to die for their beliefs in the same ways as these presidents did, and in the same way that we hear and can be witness to accounts of the people that are trying to give us the information we need in order to turn this country around to make it safer. But you know what's happening to these people? They too are being snuffed out. Most of these people are nobodies. They have huge hearts and they have a lot of dreams, but nobody knows their dreams and nobody knows their hearts because they never made them. In 1775, the American Revolutionary War began because these people were sick and tired of the oppressive monarch government that they have, overstepping and over-encroaching on their rights. And in the same way that it is today, how did we let our government oppress its people and cast dictators' discretions onto the people in account of its own gains and its own agenda and propaganda to be carried out in this way? How did we let these people gain so much power without standing up to them and saying, fuck you? This is because we are all born into lies about our freedom, and everything that we've learned in school systems have just been a cover-up of mistakes made by those fearmongers and evil people that cause for this deception that lurk in the current world we live in today. Thank God we have money, though. We know that there's nothing bigger than money, or we know that there's nothing bigger behind all of the plans going on of what to teach you is just to whatever that they can get their hands on, to teach you that the reality is behind that veil, so to speak. Don't look at the man behind the curtain. Never mind to the person that you see back here with the controllers. To be a free world and in a free country. This is no free country because this is no freedom. Because freedom comes with a huge price and none of you are willing to pay it. The price we pay otherwise is tyranny and oppression, debt, legal but not lawful enslavement of all of the people of this world. Freedom, in short, doesn't truly exist at all. The world is governed by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are behind the scenes. Benjamin Disraeli of 1844 said that the real truth of the matter is that a financial element in the large centers has owned the government since the days of Andrew Jackson. That was Franklin D. Roosevelt. With the refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest monetary system, which freed an ordinary man from the clutches of that money manipulators, was probably the prime cause of the revolution. Benjamin Franklin said that. In 1783, America won its independence from England. However, the war against corrupt and unruly bankers and the greed of central bankers had just begun. So that brings us to question, what is a central bank? A central bank is an institution that provides a monetary system for an entire nation. Based on history, two things are apparent when we are dealing with the crooks of the central banking system, which is one, the control of the interest rates and the control of the money supply or inflation. The cost of living, the gap gets larger. The government does not simply supply its economy with money. It loans it to the banks on interest. Then, through increasing and decreasing supply of money in the central bank regulates the value there within money being issued. The entire structure can only produce one thing, and that is debt. It does not help people get out of debt or help people make anything, because for every dollar that the central bank loans out, it loans out on interest. So that dollar isn't the whole dollar as it started. The dollar is also a fictionally created debt, because part of that dollar is immediately suspended with the debt attached to it. So if these people can produce a monopoly for the entire country, and they can loan money out to the people, and banks with immediate debt already attached to it, where do you suppose the money comes from to pay for that debt that's already attached to the dollar that's loaned out to the banks to begin with? It can only come from the central bank again, which means the central bank has to be perpetually increasing its money supply to temporarily cover the outstanding debt that's created, which in turn, since that new money is then loaned out on interest as well, creates even more debt. So you could see it's just a floundering. It's never ending, creating the American people to be slaves in an otherwise country that could otherwise be free, a lot freer than we are today. The founding fathers of this country were all well aware of this when it was written. I believe that the banking systems and institutions are more dangerous than standing armies. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of currency, which they have, the banks and corporations that will have to grow up around them will deprive them of their very property until their children wake up homeless on the very ground their fathers conquered. That was Thomas Jefferson. If you want to remain slaves of the bankers and pay for the costs of your own slavery, let them continue to just create money and control the nation's credit. Sir Josiah Stamp. By the early 20th century, the people have already removed some of the central banking systems which were swindled in the gain of greedy bankers' interest. At this time, the families of the corrupt banking system were as follows: the Rockefellers, J.P. Morgans, Warburgs, the Rothschilds, and in the early 1900s, they sought out to create legislation to create yet another central bank. They knew that people were very leery of creating such institutions, so they needed to operate an innocent incident that would affect public opinion. So J.P. Morgan, who at the time publicly considered a public luminary, exploiting his massive influence by publishing that another bank was insolvent and or bankrupt. Morgan knew that this would cause people to get frantic about their money, and that it would in turn affect the banks as well, and it worked. The public immediately started creating massive withdrawals, which caused the banks to call in their loans, and causing the recipients to sell their profit, and spirals out of bankruptcies, repossessions, and turmoil emerged. Putting the pieces together a few years later, Frank Allen of Life magazine wrote, the Morgan interests took advantage to precipitate the panic of 1907, guiding it shrewdly as it progressed. And that's exactly what they did. It's exactly what they continue to do today. I mean, I basically feel as though some of these people out here, and a lot of these people out here, are so rich. I could literally steal 12 Maseratis out of one person's bank account, and they'd be like, as opposed to the kind of money that other people have out here, it'd be like missing 2 pennies, maybe 5, I don't know, maybe a dime or a quarter. But I mean, it'd be like missing nothing. And yet, here we are, faced with all of the deceptive lures of our educational system, our toxic health care system. Allopathic care is junk. People need to wake up. Moving forward, unaware of the fraud of the Panic of 1907, led to a congressional investigation headed by Senator Nelson Aldrich, who was tied with the interests of the banking cartels, who later became a part of the Rockefeller family through merit. The commission, led by Aldrich, implemented that a central bank should be established so that an incident like this one in 1907 could never happen again. This was what they needed to initiate their plans. In 1910, a secret meeting was held at Jekyll Island off coast of Georgia. It was there, I believe, Christmas Eve night. The Federal Reserve Act was written while everyone else was ready for Christmas, to celebrate Christmas. The legislation was written by bankers, remember, and not people, and not the lawmakers, but by these secret, hidden cultists doing things like this in secret. This meeting was so secretive and hidden from the government and public knowledge that the people attending it had to also disguise their names en route to attending this meeting. And after this bill was constructed, it was handed over to their senator, frontman Aldrich, who had the weapon to push the Congress, and in 1913, with heavy political sponsorship of the bankers, Woodrow Wilson became president after having the party to agree, signing the Federal Reserve Banking Act into exchange for the political and voting support. So when most of the families were having Christmas, the Federal Reserve Act was voted in and turned made it law. Later, Woodrow Wilson wrote, in regret, "I am most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country. A great industrial nation is now controlled by its system of credit. Our system of credit is concentrated. The growth of the nation, therefore, and all our activities are in the hands of a few men. We have come to be one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in the civilized world. No longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men." End quote by Louis McFadden. A world banking system was being set up here, a superstate controlled by the international bankers, or shall we say gangsters, acting together to enslave a world for their own pleasure. The Fed has usurped the government. Now we are told that the Fed was a fictional equalizer or a stabilizer, and that inflation and financial crisis were a thing of the past. History has shown that nothing is further from the truth. The fact is that these international bankers have a streamlined machine to expand their personal ambitions. For an example, from 1914 to 1919, the Fed increased the money supply by nearly 100%, resulting in extensive loans to small banks on interests. Then in 1920, the Fed called in massive percentages of this money supply, thus resulting in small-time banks to call in huge loans, and just like 1907, banks run and bankruptcy and collapse occurred all over. Over 5,400 banks outside the Federal Reserve banking system suddenly collapsed, furthering the criminal actions of this very small group of international banking crooks. Then in 1921, Congressman Charles Lindbergh stepped up and said, "Under the Federal Reserve Act, panics are scientifically created." The present panic is the first scientifically created one, worked out as we figured a mathematical equation. However, the panic of 1920 was just a warm-up from 1921 to 1929. The Fed increased the money supply by 62%, once again creating extensive loans to people and banks. There was also a fairly new type of loan called the margin loan, and the stock market was born. Very simply, the margin loan was allowed a person to only have to put down 10% of the asking price of the stock, and the other 90% being loaned by the broker. In other words, a person could own $1,000 worth of stock with only $100 down. This method was very popular in the early 1920s because everyone seemed to be making money on the market. However, there was a catch to this loan. It could be called in at any time within a 24-hour margin with a 24-hour margin call-in that could occur at any time. What the margin call was basically is that selling of the stock purchased with that loan. So basically, what had happened is a few crooks would quietly go out of the stocks, and then they would start to call in these loans, creating a massive spark of interest in selling off these loans because every one of them had to cover these margin loans. It in turn created mass bank runs for the same reason and collapsing over 16,000 banks, enabling the crooked elite bankers to not only buy out these banks at a considerably low price, but also to buy up whole corporations for pennies to the dollar. It was the greatest robbery in American history. But that didn't stop there. Rather than increasing the money supply to cover up from this economic collapse, the Fed actually contracted it, which fueled one of the largest depressions in all of our history. And once again, outraged by the events taken, Louis McFadden, a longtime opponent of these banking cartels, began bringing in impeachment proceedings against the Federal Reserve Board. He stated of the crash of the market and the causing of the depression. It was a carefully contrived occurrence. International bankers sought out to bring out a condition of despair so that they might emerge and become rulers over us all. Oh gee, look what's happened. Not to become surprised with only 2 other assassination attempts that the crooks finally were able to murder McFadden by poisoning him at a banquet before he was able to push for the impeachment of the Federal Reserves, that he sought out to destroy the Fed and was killed in the process. Sound familiar? Yeah. Having reduced people to nothing in squalor, urban blight, the Federal Reserve decided now would be a good time to having the gold standard removed. So they removed the dollars that were backed by gold or silver by stating it was not giving it to them. You would be, if you weren't giving it to them, you would be imprisoned for 10 years. Under the executive order of the president, and all persons were required to return to the government all gold bullion and gold certified money back to the government, or be charged and sentenced to prison for 10 years, essentially robbing the people of what little wealth they had left. And at the end of 1933, the gold standard was abolished. You look at the dollar bill before then, and it says that it's backed by gold. But if you look at the dollar bill today, it says it is legal tender, furthering the damage to the enslaved world of debt slaves and hardworking citizens of the whole world. They essentially took away the dreams of many and handed them a legal fiction of money called currency that is only backed by more and more debt, as we learned before. Therefore, to regulate the money supply, that is also to regulate its value, and also holds the power to bring entire colonies and societies to its knees. Mayer Amstel Rothschild, founder of the Rothschild banking dynasty, said, "Give me control of the nation's money supply, and I care not who makes its laws." Gee, I wonder why he said that. It is essential to understand that the Federal Reserve is a privately owned corporation, and that it is not about as federal as the Federal Express is, making up its own policies, and it's virtually kept under no regulations by the United States government. It is a privately owned company that loans all of its money or currency at interest to the government, which is completely consistent with the fraudulent banking model, and what the people were trying to escape from by declaring their independence within the Revolutionary War to begin with. Well, I guess we didn't win our independence then, did we? Even though we're taught in school that we won our independence. No, we didn't. Go back to 1913, and the Federal Reserve Act was not only a bill that was pushed with hidden agendas attached to them, they also pushed for the federal income tax, and the Federal Reserve income tax regulation just proves how dumbed down these societies and the American people truly were and truly are. First of all, the federal income tax is completely unconstitutional as a direct unapportioned tax. All taxes have to be apportioned in order to be constitutional according to the Constitution itself. And secondly, the required amount of the states in order to ratify the amendment tax was never met. If you examine your 16th Amendment, you will find that a sufficient number of states never ratified that amendment at all. Today, roughly 25% of our earnings are taken through this tax, and I'd like to even state that it can go as high as 60% that is taken directly without your permission by this tax. And I'd like to even add that they can take 100% and further, they can take a higher percent than that and a higher percent of your future earnings by what they can take from you today based on how they can treat you as a target. And guess where all of that money goes? It goes to pay off the interest on the already fraudulent banking system, a system which never had to exist at all in the first place. The money you make in 3 months out of the year almost goes completely and literally all into the pockets of these criminal bankers who own the privately owned Federal Reserve Bank and who basically have made you into the slave you are from birth. Even with the government's fraudulent claim as to the legality of the income tax, there is literally no statute or law that exists claiming that you have to pay this tax. As if it was required by law, people would wake up and realize that this is all a huge fraud and want to do something about it. But there's absolutely no law that states you have to pay your income tax return. The only law that's there is the law that if you don't, they're going to be after you. And when you wake up to these things, they're after you in the first place. And Before you wake up to these things, they've been after you in the first place. So lo and behold, you're born into a really sinister, fucking sick world. I feel sorry for the generations that come. Unless we do something about it today, what are we going to run into? What are we allowing for our future generations to have? And if our generations aren't going to do this now, what kind of balls do you have? What kind of cojones do you really have? Fucking none. Anyway, this stuff makes me really angry because it has to do with slavery, and it has to do with why I haven't, and why many other people haven't been able to reach their highest potentials, no matter how hard they push. Moving on, Romer IRS agents even came out directly to tell the American people that within their findings that there is no law stating that you have to pay this tax. And so people resign from it. They just don't pay it, income tax to the government at all. Because it's a fraudulent system, it's illegal, and these crooks already know this. Sherry Jackson, a former IRS agent, even stated, "The research I did throughout the year 2000, that I am still doing and still have ongoing today, I have not found any law that requires citizens to pay this illegal taxation fraud," is how she said it. She has asked a lot of people, Congress, the IRS commissioners, the IRS helpers, they can't answer the question, where is the law that requires people to pay this income tax? And they can't answer, because if they did, the American people would know that they've been fooled by a government and all hell would break loose. She also states, "I have not filed an income tax return since 1999. And furthermore, how can I file income tax when incomes have been taken away from me, like I was not being paid in complete?" And then me realizing it, and I brought it to their attention, and this was three or four different jobs, but one major one here that was stealing from everybody in that whole place and just making a whole lot of money on people doing that. But how are we supposed to do that? How are we supposed to go through that and then have to pay taxes on money that the Department of Labor Industries hasn't even protected you to get? I just don't think it's necessary to pay taxes if your government is using your tax dollars to target you and tarnish your life. The Federal Reserve income tax is nothing more than an enslavement of an entire country, and to enslave the economy via the nation's money supply and through robbery of the nation's wealth is just one side of the Rubik's Cube of the whole control that the central bankers now have in place. The next tool for profit and control that you're going to use is war. Since the inception of the Federal Reserve in 1913, both large and small wars have commenced. The most well-known World War I and World War II and the Vietnam War. World War I. In 1914, European wars broke out that were centralized around England and Germany. The American public wanted nothing to do with the war. In turn, President Woodrow Wilson declared neutrality, but underneath that guise, they were looking for any excuse they could use in order to enter the war. William Jennings, in a noted observation, he wrote, "The large banking interests were deeply interested in World War because of the wide opportunities for large profits So it is important to know that the most lucrative thing that could happen for these criminal bankers is for more war. For it forces the country to borrow even more money from the Federal Reserve Bank at interest. Woodrow Wilson's top advisor was Colonel Edward House, a man with intimate connections with the international bankers who wanted in the war. In a documented conversation between Colonel Edward House and Sir Edward Grey, the former Secretary of England, regarding how to get American people to participate with the war, Grey inquired, "What will Americans do if Germans sink an ocean liner with American passengers on board?" House responded, "I believe with a flame of indignation would sweep the United States, and that by itself would be sufficient enough to carry us into a war." So on May 7, 1915, based on the suggestions made by Sir Edward Grey, a ship called the Lusitania, and it was deliberately sent into the waters with the intent to send it into German-controlled waters, where essentially the German military vessel were known to be, and expected German militants torpedoed the ship, exploding stored ammunition, killing 1,200 people. To further understand the deliberate nature of this setup, the Germans put up the news articles and advertisements in the newspapers telling people that if they boarded the Lusitania, they did so at their own risk, as such a ship sailing from America to England through a war zone would be liable to destruction. In turn, and as anticipated, the sinking of the Lusitania caused a wave of anger amongst American population, and America entered into the war in a very short time after. The First World War caused the American 323,000 deaths, and J.D. Rockefeller made $200 million off of it, which equates to over $2.7 billion in today's currency. Meaningless paper money. Not to mention that the war cost over $40 billion for America, most of which was borrowed on interest from the criminal bank federal cartel, furthering its profits for international criminal federal banking reserve systems, elite, and their cartel, and all their controlled assholes of today's world economy. World War II. On December 7th, 1941, Japan attacked the American fleet on the Pearl Harbor, which triggered our entry into that war. Roosevelt declared that the attack on that day will live in infamy. After 60 years of circulating information on the Pearl Harbor, that not only the attack on the Pearl Harbor was known weeks in advance, it was outright warranted and provoked. Roosevelt, whose family had been in New York banking since 18th century, whose Uncle Frederick was one of the original Federal Reserve Board, was very sympathetic on behalf of the central bankers, and the interest was to enter into the war, as was planned. As you've seen, that nothing is more profitable for these international banksters than war is. Roosevelt ignored a ship that was coming in to attack the Pearl Harbor. Had they been warned, the people would have had a better chance of winning. But over 2,400 soldiers died that day at the tainted, misconstrued plans of the deception that was putting us into the war in the first place, and making the criminal elite banksters even that much more money. Before the Pearl Harbor attack, over 83% of the American people were said to want nothing to do with the war. But after the Pearl Harbor, nearly 1 million men entered to fight the war for what happened at Pearl Harbor. There are two major key organizations or players here, one of which is called IG Farben, which produced 84% of Germany's explosives, and using Zircon B and concentration camps for killing millions of people. One of the players or unspoken partners of IG Farben was John D. Rockefeller's United States Standard Oil Company in America. In fact, the German Air Force could not operate without a special added operation patented by J.D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil. The drastic bombing of London by Nazi Germany, for an example, was only made possible by $20 million sale of fuel used by the IG Farben from the Rockefeller Standard Oil Company. This is just one of many topics on how the United States funded both sides of World War I and World War II, Vietnam War. One other treasonous corporation worth mentioning here is the Union Banking Corporation of New York City. Not only did it finance a lot of Hitler's rise into power, but it helped with a lot of actual materials used in war as well. It was also a Nazi money laundering bank, which was eventually exposed for having millions of dollars of Nazis' money stored in their bank vaults. The Union Bank Corporation of New York was eventually seized for violating the Trading with the Enemy Act. Guess who the vice president and director of the Union Banking Corporation was? Prescott Bush. President Bush's grandfather, our former president's father. Keep that in mind, considering the political morals of the Bush family and the key roles that it plays during the time and events in history. The Vietnam War. The United States official declaration of war in North Vietnam in 1964 came after the alleged incident involving two United States destroyers being attacked by North Vietnamese boats in the Gulf of Tonkin. This was well known as the Gulf of Tonkin incident, they called it. This was the pretense for massive troop deployment and full-fledged warfare. But there is only one problem with this pretense of the two supposed destroyers that were attacked, and that is that it never even happened. It was a completely staged event for Americans to enter into that war. Many officers and officials came out later to say that it was a complete farce, and that it was a lie to get the American people to enter into war. Once in the war, it was business as usual. In October of 1966, President Lyndon Johnson lifted train restrictions over the Soviets' plot, knowing full well that the Soviets were funding upwards of 80% of the North Vietnam's war supplies. Consequently, Rockefeller's interest financed factories in the Soviet Union, which the Soviets used to manufacture military equipment and send it to North Vietnam. However, the funding of both sides of this conflict was only one side of that coin. The Vietnam's rules of engagement were declassified, and this detail was what American soldiers were able to do in that war and what they were not able to do in the war. Like North Vietnamese anti-aircraft missile systems could not be bombed until they were known to be fully operational. No enemy could be pursued into surrounding areas like Laos or Cambodia. Critical strategic targets were only to be engaged with high approval, only meaning that they were not able to be attacked without the approval of high military officials, giving them the go-ahead. And apart from this crude and ludicrous imposed restrictions or limitations of North Vietnam was informed of these restrictions and therefore based their entire strategies around the limitations of the American forces. And this is why this war went on for so long. And the bottom line is this: the Vietnam War was never meant to be won, just sustained and kept going on. The war for profit resulted in death. Over 58,000 Americans lost their lives, and over 3 million dead Vietnamese. So where are we now? We just had September 11th. It was a jump start from what accelerated an agenda by the ruthless, elite criminal Federal Banking Reserve and the bankers and the desensitized criminal elite in power, and was a staged war pretense no different from that of the Lusitania, provoking of the Pearl Harbor, the Gulf of Tonkin lie, which is World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and the world's concurrently in both Afghanistan and Iraq. If 9/11 wasn't a war on pretext, honestly, it would be an exception to the rule that all wars were created by the elite for profit and gain. But it has been used to pose threat and launch 2 back-to-back illegal wars against the Iraqi people and Afghanistan. However, 9/11 was a pretext for another war as well, and that is the war against you. The Patriot Act, Homeland Security, Military Tribunal Act, and many other legislations are tyrannically and completely designed to destroy your civil liberties and inherit your ability to fight back against what is coming to fight you, to attack you, in the same ways that it's attacked me, without anybody being on my side with what's going on. Here I stand with way too many incidences to consider that this government isn't absolutely corrupt in the fashion that it is. Currently in the United States, unannounced, one of the brainwashed places one of the most brainwashed places on the planet. Your home can now be searched without a warrant, without you being in your home. You can in turn be arrested with no charges revealed to you, detained indefinitely with no access to a lawyer, abolishing your freedoms and having your true rights protected. These are not even rights. They are privileges they are giving to you. In other words, your government gives you your privilege to drive. You no longer have the right that you have under your protected civil liberties or the, God forbid, unalienable rights of all natural human beings. You can now be illegally tortured, all under the suspicion that you might be a terrorist. If you need a painted picture of what's happening in America and Iraq and Afghanistan and all of these other places like Rome or England or even Sweden, just recognize how history repeats itself and follow the money. In February 1933, Hitler staged a false flag attack, burning down his own German parliament and blaming it on communist terrorists. And within 2 weeks, he passed the Enabling Act, completely eradicating the German constitution and takes away people's civil liberties. He then led a bunch of preemptive wars, all justified by the German government to create a homeland security. Does any of that sound familiar? 'Cause it should. There is an evil that exists today that threatens every man, woman, and child of this great nation. We must take necessary steps to endure our domestic security and protect our homeland. That was a quote from Adolf Hitler. This was when Hitler was announcing the Gestapo to the people. It's time to wake up. The people in power are perpetually designing something in order that you are misled and you get manipulated and you do not get to live out your worth. The majority's perception of reality about political matters, especially in this political arraignment, is not their own. It is shrewdly imposed upon them without even knowing it. For an example, the public at large believe that the invasion of Iraq is going badly when dictation, violence, and terror doesn't seem to stop. But what public fail to see is that the destabilization of Iraq is exactly what the people behind the shadow government wanted. The war is to be used to sustain more war, so that the region can be divided up and the oil can be dominated and contained, and the people behind the scenes can reap their rewards and benefit in profits and greed. And most importantly, military bases are established to be used as the launching pad to be used against other oil-bearing, non-conforming countries such as Iran and Syria, which is where we have been. For further implication that the war and destabilizations of the people are purely based on intention. In 2005, 2 British SAS officers were arrested by Iraqi police with explosives and bombs after being caught driving around in their car shooting at civilians while dressed up and posing as Arabs. After being arrested and taken to jail in Basra, the British Army immediately requested that the release of these men. While the Basra government refused, British tanks physically broke in and got the men out of Basra. If you wish to destroy an area, how do you do it? Well, there are 2 ways. You can go in there and bomb the hell out of it, and that is not a very efficient way to use the land. So what they try to do instead is get the people within the country to kill each other and destroy their own territory. Sound familiar? It should. They are, in other words, human farming, and that is what they're doing to that whole area. What they are doing is destroying the area to make it undeniably unlivable, and they do this by dividing one another's rights against one another and dividing people up to get people to set up to fight each other, and they feed both sides, fanning the flames on both sides in hopes that they kill each other off. Isn't it time that some of us woke up to this reality that we're living in? The people who want to create and maintain these empires do it by mass media manipulation and of the people, using the people as livestock of who they are, trying to dominate and conquer. You might want to ask yourself why the entire culture is set up with mass media entertainment and from all sides, while the education in the American system continues its stupefying, dumbed-down curriculum, a complete downward spiral since the government decided to subsidize the American public school systems. What your government pays for, it gets. When we understand that, then we look at the government institutions of education and see that the continuity of that kind of education is being turned out by these government-financed schools, and logic will tell you that what is being turned out from these schools, or that in fact what is being turned out from these schools, is not in accordance with the state and federal government and what the state and federal government wanted to see happen. And if they wanted to see anything else, then it would be so. The bottom line is that the government is getting exactly what it ordered. They do not want your children to be educated, as true education will set them free from the shackles that they are establishing and currently, in an undermined way, feeling currently right now. Because kids aren't being taught how to think, they're being taught what to think. There's a difference. Over there being trained to take tests and remember information regurgitate information just so you can get by on the test, and after that test, do they retain any of the information? They won't remember any of it because much of it was pumped into them at such an alarming rate that no one in their right minds even wants it. An education like that isn't education at all. It's a useless form of creating so much that just what person in their right mind would want all of that? It takes a person like the school systems. I'm just going to interject here because the school systems, they take people's lives and people's heart's value and they muddy that up. They do not want you living out your worth. They want you regurgitating their information, staying a slave, and staying asleep to any of this stuff that I'm saying. Unless it's a form of passion for the person who is asking an inquisition of the questions for their life in an educational way, people don't learn. People that are inspired by their own conquests at making a true difference in somebody else's life, maybe they had a bad experience or something like that and wanted to do something about it. Or maybe they just simply have always helped enjoying people or other individuals gain more understanding of what's truly going on. The government, however, doesn't want you to think for yourself too much, and this is why our entertainment industry has become so proliferated with mass television shows and media, amusement parks, drugs, alcohol, and any other kind of thing that would keep the human mind entertained, so you don't get in the way of any of these people doing any of their corrupt things behind the scenes. People had better start waking up, because there are people that are guiding you in your life and your choices right now, daily, and you don't even know it. You're not aware of it because you don't even think that it could be so. And you treat other people that have a different idea about things than you do badly so. And you treat someone else who is willing to go along with the plan and just how manipulated this world is, and you're okay with it. It's disgusting. Edward George Ruddy died. Edward George Ruddy was the chairman of the board of the Union Broadcasting Systems, and he died at 11 o'clock of a heart condition. And woe to us. We're in a lot of trouble. So, a rich little man with white hair died. What does that go to do with the price of right? The price is right. And why is that woe to us? Because you people and 62 million other Americans are listening to me right now. Because less than 3% of you read books. Because less than 15% of you read newspapers. Because the only truth you know is what you get over this tube. Right now, there's a whole and an entire generation that never knew anything that didn't come out of this tube. This tube is your gospel, the ultimate revolution. This tube can make or break presidents, popes, prime ministers. This tube is the most awesome force in the whole godless world, and woe is us if it ever falls into the hands of the wrong people. And that's why woe is us that Edward George Ruddy died. Because this company is now in the hands of CCA, the Communication Corporation of America. There's a new chairman on the board, a man called Frank Hackett, sitting in Mr. Ruddy's office on the 20th floor. And when the 12th largest company in the world controls the most awesome goddamn propaganda force in the whole godless world, who knows what the shit will be peddled for truth on this network. So, you listen to me. Television is not truth. Television is a goddamned amusement park for lies. Lie vision. In small circuits, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players, soccer ball players, sports. We're in the boredom killing business. So if you want truth, go to God. Go to your gurus. Go to yourselves. Because that's the only place you're ever going to find any real truth, is going to God. But man, you're never going to get any truth from these places. They'll tell you anything you want to hear. We lie like hell. We'll tell you that Kojak always gets the killer, and that nobody ever gets cancer, and that Archie Bunkers, and that nobody ever gets cancer at Archie Bunkers' house. And no matter how much trouble the hero is in, don't you worry. Just look at your watch. At the end of the hour, he's gonna win. We'll tell you any shit you want to hear, but it's just shit. We deal in illusions, man. None of it's true. But you people sit there day in and day out, night after night, all ages, all colors, all creeds. We're all that you know. You're beginning to believe the illusions we're spinning here. You're beginning to think that the tube is reality and that your own lives are unreal. You do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube. You eat like the tube. You raise your children like the tube. You even think like the tube. This is mass madness. You all are maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion. So turn off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. In fact, take the whole fucking thing and throw it out. Turn them off right now in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to. If I'm telling you this right now, turn it off. As he exhorted his audience, his eyes circled around as he collapsed to the on-stage floor in a swoon, a show-stopping seizure. The last thing these men behind the curtain want for you is a conscience. Or to be well informed into critical thinking, which is why a continually fraudulent zeitgeist is output via religion, mass media, and the educational system itself. They seek to keep you distracted, naive, inside of your little bubble, inside of a little reality, and they are good at doing a very good job at it. In 2005, an arrangement between Canada, Mexico, and the United States was made. This arrangement, unannounced, the public, unregulated by Congress, announced merges of the United States, Canada, and Mexico into one entity, erasing all borders. It's called the North American Union. You might even want to look that one up and ask yourself why you never heard of this. In fact, there was only one reporter that had the courage to cover this issue. The Bush administration open border policy is a decision to ignore the immigration and border laws of this country and is a part of a broader agenda. President Bush signed a formal agreement that will end the United States as we know it, and he took this step without either approval from Congress or of the people of the United States. Of course, you're not going to get any approval from the United States because if we would have known that this was going on back then, oh Lord, would life look different today? It's a deal that no one has even heard of before it happened. It's been done by very few people, again at the top of the financial elite chains, underneath our noses, and not for civilians in this country, but for the investment class. not for the working class. The political officials from all across America and other countries, communities and cities and so forth don't know anything about it. This isn't a trade agreement. It's a total removal of sovereignty from these countries, which will ultimately also result in a completely new currency called the Amero, or whatever they want to call the digital dollar. By implementation of this agenda, the American Constitution will become obsolete. You'd think that an outcry for the American Republic would be on the cover of magazines and newspapers all over the media, but it is not. This is because the same people that are behind the movement are also the same people behind your mainstream media. You are not going to be told what you are not supposed to know. The North American Union is the same exact concept of the European Union, the African Union, and the soon-to-be Asian Union, and is said to be the same people who are behind all of them. And at the right time, all of these unions will be merged together into one global cabal for the enslavement of all people on planet Earth. The final stages of this event, these men have been working on for over 70 years, and one world government well known as today as the New World Order, it's here. We shall have world government whether we like it or not. The only question is whether the world government will be achieved by conquest or by consent. These were James Warburg's words to the United States Committee on Foreign Relations in 1950. If you don't think that it's affecting us in the same way as today, get prepared. We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plans for the world if we had been subjugated to the lights of publicity during those years. But the world is more sophisticated and prepared to march toward a world government now. The supernatural sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practiced in the past centuries. And this was spoken by David Rockefeller, our Council on Foreign Relations. One bank, one army, one center of power. If we have learned one thing from history is that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Lord Acton, English historian in 1834 through 1902. Meet Aaron Russo, a filmmaker and former politician. He became friends with Nicholas Rockefeller until after he learned about the secrets behind the family. He ended the relationship with Nicholas Rockefeller based on the ambitions of the Rockefellers family. Nicholas Rockefeller quotes from 11 months before September 11, 2001. End quote. There is going to be an event, Aaron, and out of that event, you're going to see what you are going to see. We are going to go over into Afghanistan, and so we can run pipeline into the Caspian Sea. We're going to go over into Iraq to take the oil and establish bases in the Middle East. And then we're going into Venezuela, and we're going to try and get rid of Chavez. And the first two they've accomplished, and they didn't accomplish the third at this time. And you're going to see people going into caves looking for people that they're never going to find. And he's laughing about the fact that we have this war on terror when there is no real threat or enemy. And he was talking about how whenever you have this war on terror, you can never win it. He says, because it's an eternal war. You can always keep talking about people's civil liberties and keep taking them away. And so he asks, how are you going to convince the people that this war is real? And he answers, the media. The media can convince everybody of anything that they need them to, and will convince the American people that it is real. You know, and you just keep talking about these things and you keep repeating it over and over, and eventually people are going to believe it. And that's exactly how they do it. You know, you created the Federal Reserves in 1913 through lies and manipulations. You create 9/11, which is another lie and manipulation. And then fighting the war in Iraq, which this is a war on terror, which was another lie and manipulation. And now they're going to do Iran the same way. You know, it's all one thing leading to another, that leads to another, that leads to another, that leads to another. And they know it. They play on both sides of the coin. So Aaron Russo would ask, what are you doing this for? You have all of the money in the world. You have everything that you could ever want. You have all of the power. He said, you know, you are hurting a lot of people. It's not a good thing at all. And then he would say, what do you care about the people for? Take care of yourself and take care of your family. So he said, what are the ultimate goals here? He said the ultimate goal is to get everyone in the world chipped with an RFID chip, and that they have everything inside of that chip. All the money and everything medical is on these chips. And anyone that wants to protest what we have to do or violate what we want, we just shut them off, turn them off, and they won't be able to eat, get medical care, or anything. In 2005, the United States Congress, under the preemptive preliminary control in this so-called war on terrorism, passed the Real ID Act, which was proposed to take hold in 2008 and make everyone carry around an ID that is scannable and has all of your information on it. Currently, when these cards get scanned, everything is being recorded, so this shadow government can track literally every last little thing about you. Even personal things is on this. It is total conflict with the privacy and respect from the government to its people. It is said that we the people must respect our government and authority figures, but when these figureheads are talking about killing people and annihilating our human rights forever, what is the use of continuing to proclaim your own freedom and to continue sticking up for these respectable places? What is the point of being so subservient to the truth to cast it away, to continue down the pathway, leading us straight into this hell and this debt and this pain, when without the shadow of a doubt, if we were ever to get and let these crooks get away with these serious and heinous crimes, we would have been in a much better world today. I believe even unimaginable to us creating a life that would look so much more amazing than what it looks like today. But we can grasp a good percentage of what it could look like if history just didn't look as evil as in the world, as that huge puzzle piece isn't so puzzling at all anymore, as it's just sickening. And it's so sickening, it'll make you want to puke. Things that can make a person feel so depressed and so crazy. It's no wonder why we have so much dissonance in our world and confusion. People really don't know what to believe in anymore, because all that they're being fed and taught to believe in was all created under a false pretense, hiding their agenda from the world, because the world has got time to wake up and got time to wake up together. You have to make that time to wake up. The more split apart we are as a community and as a family unit or as a whole, the more that these people and the government gets what it wants from us, and in keeping us all locked into wars and debt slavery, just as anything that they do work on, they would impose on us. They don't care about us. From all over the world, and with millions dead, what is your birth certificate really worth to you? What is your freedom, your peace, really worth to you? The RFID tracking chip has already been initiated into all Americans' passports because you are already considered property of the United States government. You don't even own your body according to these people. And all you do to make belongings to the government, all you do belongs to the government, therefore. And for their final step is in implanting their chip into our bodies, which many people have already grown to accept under different pretenses. And before long, everything people do and every action we take is going to be documented. And if you get out of line, they can just turn off your chip and you don't get to eat. You don't get to pay your bills. From this point on, all your interactions in society will happen with the infringements of these people's rights being forced upon to be chipped or to get chipped and being forced into this world order. This is the painted picture of the future if you are brave enough to open your eyelids enough to see it. A centralized power move where everyone's actions and moves are tracked, monitored, and all rights are removed. The sad part is that people won't even have to be afraid of getting them because they're going to try to train you to want them and try to train you to sell them on to you. But nothing should make you more scared than any other of these false pretenses. People are already getting chipped. This division has completely desensitized humans from their power and reality altogether. A process which has been going on for centuries, if not for millennia. Religion, patriotism, race, wealth, class, and all other forms of arbitrary separation from people that we can see the population can be controlled by the few who want every valuable thing from your human life and all life on this planet. You are nothing more than a livestock to these people, and they don't care about you or anybody else. So, divide and conquer is the motto. As long as people continue to see themselves as separate from everything and everyone else, they're lending themselves to being completely enslaved. The criminal federal government and crooks who want to run the world know this, and they also know that if people ever realize the truth in their relationship to nature and the truth in their personal power, then their personal zeitgeist, then they prey upon would collapse like a house of cards. And in that, dog, I hope that we do. I hope we do wake up. The whole system we live in drills into us that we are powerless and weak and that our society is evil. And it's a big fat lie. We are actually powerful, beautiful, and strong people. There is no reason why people can't understand where it's going and what it is that we're trying to accomplish. There is no reason why the average human being can't feel fully empowered when we are fully empowered human beings. We can get a lot done. This whole society is built on judging others. We can look at a person and say whether or not they're poor or rich and start to categorize people into different categories, and then we can start to treat people that way as society teaches us to treat each other that way. So we get to a point where we only see people as separate from ourselves, and instead of like, the dramatic characteristics of being able to be with another person, all of a sudden it seems like it's taboo. Seeing a rich person going and sitting with the poor. You don't see that for very long coming from the elite, that's for sure. Anyway, these people are no different from you or I, but they suddenly have there's evil people in the world. There's an agenda at play. And experiencing that fact that in which essence lies in you and the essence that lies in me is one indeed. It is the understanding that there is no other. It is all one. I wasn't born with a name attached to me. I was born a human being to just learn this whole business of who I am and whether or not I'm a good person or a bad person, achieving something or not achieving something, all of which gets learned along the way. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. Sri Chinmoy. A single thought is emerging through that the earth is one, that we all belong on earth as one, and we are waking up to see and realize that the world in which the wars were set upon it is doomed for chaos and destruction. That's all it's ever been made for. The revolution is here and now. Let's put the world back in its place before it puts you in yours, your early grave, the one that it has been working and designing for you this whole time. Let's fight against that. You have to be the voice for the voiceless. You have to hardly feel for yourselves at all in order to feel for the others that you run across, as far as where your lessons are concerned, where you're trying to go, where you're trying to learn. If you have any voice at all, raise it up. God save us from the tyrannical and corrupt leaders of this world. God save us now. You can try to tame me, but you can't put my heart to death, because you forgot what the fuck you are in all of this mess. But you're in trouble. Government officials bucking down to hurt any other motherfucker that's out here trying to do any other thing about it. Trying to give a fuck about protecting my rights. Yeah, you can't give a fuck about my rights. You don't give a fuck about my rights. You can claim that you're out to protect me and my rights, but you have never once protected me and my rights. You can't erase this. You can only create more hell on earth for these people. You can't erase the pain that you've caused. You can't pay me back. You can't give me enough money. You can't give me enough life. Because you can't give me back people that have already been killed. I only want to create more hell on earth for all of the people. That's you. I only want to create more violence on this earth, protecting my own family and protecting my own, well, fuck all of these people. Yeah, that's you. So keep your hand on your gun and don't trust any one of them. This government is power, and this government is corrupt. When the American people are persuaded to believe that they have been set up, disposed of in proper ways by you, proper ways by what you consider proper, but not the American people, not the dreamers, not the hearts, not the artists, not the producers, not the people sitting there confused, not knowing what to write on that paper. They pick up the pen. They have a lot to say. They don't know how to say it. Pick up the pen and write. And I'm sorry to bring up all of this history here, folks, but This is the fact of the matter here, is that our hearts have been muddied up by what's been cast upon us from our educational system all the way down. And you can't tell me that I'm lying because of all of the things that have been happened to me. All of the things that have been happening to targeted individuals. All of the things that you're led to believe on the news about certain things is a bold-faced lie. The media lies all the time. It's time to recognize the game that they play. It's all the media lies. Headlines screaming the twisted truth, creating illusion and distorting your youth. They feed us stories, paint distorted views, crafty narratives that they want us to pursue. Truth becomes a casualty lost in the haze, a web of deception where reality decays. The media lies. We're caught in the illusion and it's time to rise. The media lies. World of separation, they want us divided. We're waking up, our spirits undivided. Society built up on judgments of the rich or the poor. Categories imposed, we're breaking that sore core. Born nameless, just a human being, learning the game of what society's seeing. Powerless, they say, but it's a big fat lie. We're powerless, we're beautiful, we're reaching for the skies. HEARTWERKS, the movement, call to the soul, breaking them chains and we're breaking the whole world. We're powerful beings, can't you see it now? Connection to nature and our truest identities taking place. And the system's drilled will teach us we're weak, but we're breaking free. And the truth that we seek, judging others, creating divides. Category lives where empathy hides. Look behind the surface, the essence is one. No other, just unity under the sun. No name defines us, just humanity breaking all of them the chains that truly keep us bind and not truly free. HEARTWERKS, a movement to call to the soul, breaking them chains and making them broken whole. The powerful beings in prayer, can't you see we're taking care of our nature and the truest identities? And we're here, we're clearly not going nowhere. A single thought emerging, earth is one, waking up to chaos, no war, nerve one. Revolution is now, let's find our voices, let's make these world choices before the world leaves us with absolutely no choice left but to be dead inside and dead. Yeah, the powerful players and tyrannical leaders corrupt power play, but we won't be silenced, we're rising today, protecting our rights and the call to be free. A voice for the voiceless and a power for unity moves. Can't erase our truths and can't put our hearts to death. Forgotten our identities, reclaiming each and every breath. It's our birthrights, bucking down the corruption, standing tall in the face of this injustice. We won't fall, we won't back down. Stand it up tall in this HEARTWERK movement, a call to the soul, breaking them chains and breaking the whole world down for everything that it's done to you now. Powerful beings, don't you see everything that you had planted in your heart? Just got left in that murky water right from the start. Connected to nature, let our truest identities unfold. Come with me and rise with me in this lyrical conquest and a call to action for the oppressed. You can't erase the truth. Silence is in our youth. Our HEARTWERK beats in every single heartbeat. We're making the world come to life in a world so beautiful and true. Calling artists, producers, and more into HEARTWERK and call to action for the oppressed out here on these streets. I wanna rise a unity in a HEARTWERK beats, making unity on these streets. I wanna bring people up and bring people up in the worst way. And I want my HEARTWERKS to make poverty go away. Because in this power move, to grasp, to come out the truth. Cause the media lies, and the media lies. And all of its disguises. Calls us to break those chains and see through the lies. The pixels and inks they mold into our minds, yeah, shaping perceptions and controlling the blinds on your eyes, covering you up like a masquerade inside. You don't even know who you truly are, and how could you? Cause all the dreamers in the waste in this place, yeah. Those grave sites are just art for a showcase. Agendas hidden behind that flashy screenshots, manufacturing consent, manipulating scenes. They say it's news, but it's just a show, a scripted performance. A twisted little flow, fanning the flames and creating divides. Yeah, smoke and mirrors the media hides. All of the truth that lies behind the symphony of deceit and the selling us dreams, but the nightmares stuck in our lives, stuck on repeat and stuck on repeat. So I'm out here to question everything, and I'm not gonna take its place. I'm not gonna take it at face value anymore. Behind the curtains these puppeteers embrace, seeking the truth and mindset, in the mindset of the noises embrace. Break free from the grip and find your own voice in every single thing that they say to you, and every single thing that they show to you, and claim the objectivity true, but it's just a facade. Agendas in the shadows and pulling the cord now, spinning that narrative, shaping our beliefs. We're waking up now, we're shaking the thieves. The media lies and lies and lies, but we'll see clear through, exposing all the falsehoods and bring back the facts to the view. No more blind to the trust and true, no more blind to the truth. The media's disguise, it's untimed to unveil all the media lies, cause the media lies all the time. A symphony of deceit and selling us dreams, got the nightmares on repeat. In the era of misinformation, we'll stand tall and masking the truth. We'll break down them walls, no longer fooled by the clear vision. The vision getting clearer and clearer. The media lies, but the truth perseveres. The truth's out there, it's up to you to find it and opinionate yourself on the facts that you've shared. And not to be censored and throttled in everything that you've been through. Everything that you've been through, yeah, the gang stalking is true to you to this day. And every single thing that you say and everything that you've been through, yeah, you'd owe me $3,000 again and again and again. So what the fuck is this world really for? Trying to work in charity for more, cause I want more for the whole fucking world. So I'm just trying to create a movement. It's called HEARTWERKS. Join in this HEARTWERKS movement and create the affirmations for the people to see it. Wake it up. Wake people up. Wake people up in a world of deception. We've been screwed for so long. I got lost in my perceptions. I got hurt by a system, drowning in lies, extra betrayal and tears left in my eyes. Over time, realizing HEARTWERKS dreams, it's harder to conceive. Set challenges inside, harder to believe. To rise above, got a mountain to climb, but certain folks wanted me dead this time. It took me for a dime. Waking up this time was harder and harder to get out of my slumber so deep and systematic and lies. Promises that they keep, betrayals stack up, challenges immense. In the shadows and valleys, I find my defenses in the Lord. Lost in this time in my mind, framed in the struggle in this left but charity. Lost in this maze but searching for clarity. Dreams get shattered, illusions get torn, bearing the weight, feeling forlorn. Got HEARTWERK challenges, a journey's unclear, obstacles and hurdles. I'm drawing near, rising above the challenges. From the ashes I emerge, but betrayal, sin, and sting, an endless surge. Wake up from the slumber so deep. Systematic lies and promises that they keep. Betrayals stack up, Challenge is immense in the shadows and valleys, finding my defense. They don't keep anyone promises in their lies. In the charity they'll find, in the strength this time, a beacon of hope to go to any length, to the system that hurt its people to deceive them in the worst ways. But in this, I'm digging you out of that grave and taking your heartstrings, tying it to chains, tying it to Jesus in every single night, taking that place, and people may deceive you, and I'm giving my soul to retrieve it. Mindset shifting from the rising above, and the heartwork challenges fueled by love, making it harder and harder for me to actually take it up to that place. The place of charity and the balm of the wounds that run so deep in the realm. Giving up my soul is to keep growing in this charity. So I'm no longer a fool. Got lessons learned in the tapestry of life's twists and turns. Betrayals may sting, but I'll stand tall in the adversity. Yeah, I won't back down. Connecting chains, wrapped so tight, slaying the demons in prayers every night. In the realm of dreams where aspirations reside, a heartworks done hardcore on this righteous ride. Charity on that flame, connections, hearts to the rise in the sky. Where dreams wrapped up in these chains, to Jesus we tie them, we bind them, binding the chains to these demons and slaying them in these prayers. Wrapped so tight in faith that we declare, dreams taken back from the claws of despair. One by one, hearts as we find them, in the heartworks we rise, in a relentlessly fair. Dreams on chains, tied to Jesus' name in the realm of charity. We ain't playing no game, we're slaying the demons and breaking every single chain. Cause where Heartworks is born, Heartworks gets hardcore, where the dreams regain. In the darkest alleys of doubt, where demons crawl about, we're heartwork warriors, we're standing tall, and the charity is a weapon. Dreams are the fuel, we're taking Jesus and breaking every single rule. Prayers every single night in a collective might, building up them dreams and taking demons down, breaking them down and slaying them in Jesus' name. Taking that light and dreams set free from the shackles they wore this time in this hardcore rap. In the journey we implore, dreams and chains we're tying to Jesus' name. In the realm of charity we ain't playing no games, we're slaying demons and breaking every single chain. In the heartwork warriors, we're heartworks born, we're heartworks hardcore. In the dreams we regain, we're standing together, united against that force. In charity's name we stay on course, breaking every single thing that they've done to you, and breaking free from the grip in every single night, bounding to the in Jesus' name in a heavenly light. One by one, fighting the demons, falling to the ground. One by one, in the echoes of the prayer, a powerful sound. Chains shattered and the dreams set ablaze. The Heartworks warriors will stand unfazed, taking back dreams with every single prayer. In the realm of charity we dare, bound to Jesus in faith unchained. In the Heartworks warrior, a Heartworks rap come out hardcore, when the hardcore dreams get regained. Dreams of chains tied to Jesus' name, we're taking the dreams out, we're binding them with spirit and chains. In the Holy Ghost, we're taking them out of your hearts. In the realm of charity we ain't playing no games, we're slaying them demons every single name. Every single name in the Heartworks hardcore, the Heartworks T-Rap where this dream regains. In the spirit and the Holy Ghost is ride, coming to this ride and set this heart ablaze. So this hardcore beats in the mission and a vision unfolds. Let those dreams set free in Heartworks charity stronghold, tied to Jesus in a powerful embrace. Heartwork, it gets hardcore, relentless chased and bruised in this chase. But we won't phase, we won't let it phase us. We're hardworking at our heart work. We're hardcore in our heart work. We're hardcore in our heart work. We're taking dreams back and slaying the demons every single night and every single day. armor of Christ. Because it's a relentless war. That's what HEARTWERKS was born for. Hardcore, to make that G-rap come to life out of your own heart's value. In core of my being, dreams take flight. HEARTWERKS pulsating in the depths of every night. Got chains of love tying to the hearts of cause. Cause ripping out demons is breaking those oppressive laws. We're slaying Jesus' name in the mighty sword of Jesus. We're battlegrounds of hearts for relentless war. And it mends out loud through the hardened streets. HEARTWERK warriors where dreams our hearts met. And chains of hearts on the rhythms we sway. Slaying demons in Jesus' name that we pray. HEARTWERKS hardcore warriors in the soul's terrain. Amen in the anthem breaking every single chain. HEARTWERKS in sync in a chorus of might. Chains interwoven in the charity's light. Demons tremble in the chains pulling them tight. In the name of Jesus we'll reclaim that night. Swords rising high against the demon's throng. In the rhythm of prayers we'll sing that song. Ripping out those demons from our hearts so pure. HEARTWERKS hardcore, an anthem to enduring. Cause HEARTWERKS was born from pain. That pain that's left in the soul's terrain. Amen, believe then in the anthem and break every single chain. The HEARTWERKS and us warriors in every single way. Slaying demons in Jesus' name we pray. HEARTWERKS warriors entwined in the symphony. So hardcore, telling them, tying them in chains. Telling them that they have no place inside that heart. Across that land we're ripping demons out. In the unity we'll find an amen battle. And after you say amen, believe.